The beauty of recovery is that there we learn the tools for how to deal with life. So we don't have to turn to these substances or these compulsive behaviors to relieve our pain. And we no longer isolate ourselves. We learn how to be in the human family because that's where we belong. Human beings are wired for connection. We are pack animals. We're meant to live together in community. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting, LLC, where I coach people on how to develop healthy boundaries. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. This is episode 147. You are not alone. There are others just like you. This is one of the most powerful lessons we learn in recovery, that we are not alone. It was reinforced for me today when I was looking at the weekly email from Postsecret. If you're not familiar with Postsecret, I want to take a moment to introduce you to it. It was started by Frank Warren a number of years ago as a community art project through the mail. And I just read that it's now the largest advertisement-free blog in the world. Frank lost a couple of dear friends to suicide, so he volunteered at a couple of suicide prevention hotlines. And one of the things that he realized is that most people don't actually want to die. They just want the pain to end. And for many, many people, their pain comes from holding on to some secret that is just fucking killing them. And he felt like, well, if people just had an outlet to share their secret, they could unburden themselves and they would no longer want to kill themselves. So he started something called Postsecret, where he invited people to mail their secrets to him anonymously. And many years later, it's turned into this enormous life-saving project where, among other things, he does live events, often at college campuses. He sends out weekly emails. He has a website, a Facebook group, a Twitter page, an Instagram page, and he shares these secrets anonymously. I was lucky enough to be able to go to one of the public events a few years ago, and it was incredibly moving. Among other things I've learned from Postsecret is that there are so many varied characters in the human race. There are some fucked up, crazy individuals out there. There are some unbelievable, loving people out there. There are some weirdos out there, and it doesn't matter how weird you are or how kind you are or how evil you think you are. There are other people like you. And there are also so many people who are utterly different from you. So many of us have really, really powerful secrets that may feel so shameful, where as other people might think that secret is no big deal. For example, Frank says the number one secret shared with him is that people pee in the shower. Well, guess what? If you're ashamed of that, join the club. Most people pee in the shower, apparently. I guess that means it's normal, so there's no need to feel ashamed of it. And even if it wasn't normal, you still don't need to feel shame about such things. Now, the reason that all this connects to recovery is that when we get into the rooms of recovery, we start hearing other people telling stories like ours, and we're like, holy shit, I'm not alone. One thing I think everybody in recovery is good at, no matter why they're in recovery, is isolation. Whatever your thing is, maybe you shoot heroin, or you're addicted to porn, or you binge and purge food, or you steal money to satisfy your addiction, or you gambled away your family's savings. So you do your thing, and then what we do is we isolate, and then we bathe ourselves in shame, which just makes us want to use more. But then when we come into recovery, we meet people who do the same shit as we do, and they think the same fucked up thoughts that we think. And we realize we're not terminally unique. We are not uniquely flawed. We're just part of the human family. Maybe we've been a little bent in a couple places, and maybe we've been a little broken. And maybe we didn't learn tools for how to handle the ups and downs of life. The beauty of recovery is that there we learn the tools for how to deal with life. So we don't have to turn to these substances or these compulsive behaviors to relieve our pain. And we no longer isolate ourselves. We learn how to be in the human family, because that's where we belong. Human beings are wired for connection. We are pack animals. We're meant to live together in community. I remember hearing in my first few months in recovery, we are addictive and compulsive in isolation, and we heal in community. And I feel like that is one of the greatest gifts of 12-step recovery. There's so much about recovery that's fantastic, but for me, one of the greatest gifts is that we don't do it alone. In one of my fellowships, there's some literature that talks about how many of us didn't believe in God because God never answered our prayers when we were kids, praying to get out of whatever the situation was, or God never answered our prayers when we were active in our addiction. So we decided God must not exist because he or she didn't answer our prayers. Well, one of the things this piece of literature says is maybe our prayers weren't answered because we weren't meant to do the work alone. We weren't meant to do it in isolation. We were meant to do it in community. And that's how we find our higher power in recovery. And I just think that is so beautiful. Now, whether or not it's true, I don't know, but it sounds so beautiful to me. Now, the postcard I saw in the Postsecret weekly email this morning that really struck me and made me want to do this episode today was where somebody had drawn a picture of a cityscape, and they wrote across the top, "The Postsecret app taught me compassion." And then they wrote a bunch of phrases, then drew arrows pointing to various windows in the different buildings. And those phrases said things like losing weight, thinking about suicide, degenerate, sober, has a child that is dying of cancer, hopes their test is positive, hopes their test is negative, likes poop, wants to help, mom left, has a big dick, shaves her pussy. You get the point. There are so many different things that people have on their minds, and we think we're the only ones, and we're not. I am here to tell you, dear listener, you are not alone. If you want to connect with other human beings, or you want to feel part of something, and you're not already in 12-step recovery, there's a fellowship for everyone. I also encourage you to connect with the Postsecret community. The way I connect is through the weekly emails that come in on Sundays. What Frank does is he pulls out a couple dozen of the secrets that he received that week, and he posts them anonymously. I'll put the link to subscribe to that in the show notes, and I'll also put the link to the Postsecret Patreon page. Frank does a lot to raise awareness about suicide prevention, and I really encourage you to subscribe. And I also encourage you to find a meeting, especially if you're feeling lonely and isolated, because you're not alone, my friend. Even if it feels like it, you're not. There are entire communities of people just like you waiting to meet you.